guys, so welcome back to another episode on today's property upgrading journey. And today really what we want to deep dive into, how are we going to select the right property in order to ensure, one, first of all, this property is going to be able to exit in the future. Secondly, of course, the most important one, what we also want to see is that how can we then make the right decision to have the right property that appreciates in value over time, so that, after working so hard, putting so much into your monthly installment, we are able to extract some level of equity after we sell off this property as well. So today, three main objectives. First, we want to take you through our PLB 5-step journey framework and one additional bonus framework right at the end of the episode in terms of your entire upgrading process and how you're going to select the right property. Second and the third one, they are mostly interlinked. We're going to take a look what are the macro factors in Singapore, together with the frameworks that we're going to use to analyze and make the right decision. And of course, most importantly, what are the micro factors to look out for and the applicable frameworks that we're going to use. Alright, so if you're ready to find out more, let's just dive right in. So first of all, let's take a step back and let's say today you're really just in the very initial phase. You're still thinking whether or not you want to make that move and you're not sure how you're going to make that move, right? So in PLB here, PropertyLimBrothers, we have 5 key milestones in terms of your journey. When you're planning to upgrade from your property, it might be a HDB to a condo. It can also be from like a private to another private, sort of to switch out your portfolio as well. The first step will be your direction, the second one in terms of your finance, third one in terms of your time frame, as well as the 5 key frameworks. And of course, once we have segment down and chosen the right project to enter to, and of course the right unit, the right facing and the right pricing, then we can proceed to secure your property upgrading plans. Right, so today really we're just going to touch more about the micro selection. So very quickly, I'm just going to take you through steps 1 to 3. So step 1, in terms of your direction of the portfolio, is this home going to be for own stay? Is this home going to be for investment? So this is very important to first understand, because let's say if you're going for a pure investment sort of strategy, the lens that you're going to see this property is completely different from someone who's going to buy this for own stay, correct? So let's say, for example, it's just you and your husband right now, or maybe you guys are going to have kids, maybe you guys are not going to have kids. You guys do not know, but all we know is that maybe this next home is going to be for your own stay. So there's just so many other factors that we also want to take into account for before we go into the project selection, right? So for example, if let's say it's going to be own stay and maybe now you guys have 2 kids, then primary school is probably something that you really need to be considering. You need to be within 1 kilometer within a certain school because you have plans to send your kids to this particular primary school, then that will set the basis of the entire search as well. So there are many other criteria when it comes to choosing for your own stay, because ultimately for own stay, you are the ones going to be living inside this property, so you got to make sure that this property feels right for you. Whereas on the other hand, for investment, it's very much numbers based, right? We want to go into growth areas. We are not too particular about which region because we do not physically need to be staying in this particular property. So the entire lens from own stay and an investment perspective is completely different. And so first, you got to understand, is this really for your own stay or for your investment? I think what is more crucial, and this is something that maybe a lot of people do not really think about. Sometimes we just think, oh, let's just upgrade, oh, this condo is nice. But sometimes we also want to plan a little bit further. So let's say, the 3, 5, 10-year marks, where do we envision our lives to be, right? So maybe in our family setting right now, maybe you just have 2 kids. But maybe down the road, you do plan to have more kids. Then in that case, do we need to plan for extra bedrooms, right? Because you do not want to be caught in a situation where probably you have to faster sell off your property because you need more space, but maybe in that particular season of the market, it does not allow you to do so quickly. So you really want to plan further ahead as well as to what are certain possible scenarios that might happen in your life stage as well. I think very commonly what we hear on the ground from our clients also is that they are planning to move closer towards their parents' place because they do need their parents to support in terms of taking care of their families. So of course, this is also one other factor that you should be thinking about. Primary schools, I would say 60% of our clients that come to us when they are sort of selling their HDB, upgrading or private, most of the times they are really planning for the primary school because maybe right now their kids are 3, 4, 5 years old and they want to make sure that they have the address registered, time for the P1 registration. So of course, to ensure that you are able to safely register for the P1 registration in time, then there's a lot of timeline planning to be done as well beforehand. So you do also need to sort of think in terms of your horizon of holding this property. Of course, that comes to then the question, what is your holding period? Are we looking at maybe after 5 years, I plan to sell and move on. But most of the time, I would say, let's say you're really planning for primary school, then probably going to stay there for at least the next 7 to 10 years. So are you able to see yourself staying in this particular place for the next 7 to 10 years? Is this unit going to fit all your family requirements for the next 7 to 10 years? And of course, in Singapore, we have something called the seller stamp duty, meaning to say that if you sell a property that you just recently bought in the first, second, or third year, then you'll be hit with this seller stamp duty. Basically, it's the tax that you have to pay. So this also sort of ensures most homeowners in Singapore, technically, they will have to wait out for the seller stamp duty to be over, meaning to say that they'll hold for at least 3 years and more to avoid paying any seller stamp duty, because that, of course, eats into your profit margin as well. Generally, the good guide is that maybe 5 years will be a good time frame for you to plan in terms of holding period, because in the first 3 years, naturally, because installments are interest reducing, meaning to say in the first, second, third year, most of your monthly installment, you're actually just covering the interest paid on the property. If let's say you were to choose to sell off this property, even though perhaps there has already been some paper gains, net take back might not be as high as well. So a good time frame to gauge how long you should be holding this property, we would think it's about 5 years for you to sort of safely see some gains in this particular unit itself. And of course, if let's say today, both of you guys are Singaporeans, you guys have aspirations to sort of own 2 private condos individually, then of course it also matters which name and which property are we going to pair it together, because that's going to affect the entire portfolio strategy. For example, if let's say your wife is younger and maybe you all have plans to only buy this second property just maybe 5-10 years, then perhaps it's a good idea to have your wife take on the second property, because if she's younger, technically her age can also loan up to 65 years, slightly longer than someone who's older. So that also means that you get to enjoy a longer loan tenure. You can then enjoy a lower monthly installment as well. Those are also things that we should take a look. And of course, let's say you're a Singaporean married to a PR and you guys plan to buy your next private property, maybe you're planning to do like the 80-20% in terms of the ownership, or like a 99 one, then whose name should be 99%, whose name should be 1%, right? So all these are also things to really account for right from the start before you buy into the property, because the moment you buy in, you have already set yourself in place and there's no more backing out of it. So it's really essential to know what's the direction of your portfolio right from the start before we kickstart anything. So secondly is in terms of your financial portfolio. So when we talk about financial portfolio, what we really want to prevent is to overextend our finances, meaning to say that when we buy into a property or when we choose to upgrade into a beautiful project, but we are not able to service the money installment very comfortably, then that might not make any sense for you to enter into that particular project as well, because the last thing we want is that, oh, I need to fire sale my property now. But in Singapore, property is illiquid in the sense that there's a lot of transaction time, a lot of the transaction monies involved in selling and buying a property as well. So it's not something that you can say, okay, I don't want this anymore, I want to sell the next day. It does not work overnight as well, unlike your stocks or dividends. So we really want to make sure that we have our financial prudency done in place even before we commit to a property. So things like how much can you loan, what's the TDSR, what's the stress test as of today, and let's say assuming that you have a car loan right now, that's also going to affect your TDSR, because technically that's going to bring down your entire loan capacity. So these are also things to take note of. Maybe you need to restructure your car loan, or you need to fully pay off your car loan, and what would be like a comfortable range that you be going for, right? So as a buyer, in terms of the market performance, we really won't know what's going to come in future. No one can tell what the future is going to be. The market might come up, the market might come down. So what we want to be is very prudent. Make sure that even let's say it's a good market or a bad market, we are going to be able to support this financial commitment that we have entered into as well. So we really want to sell when we want to and not to sell when we need to. So this is really a pitfall that we want to avoid. And of course, in terms of your holding power, based on our own personal opinion, what might be a good guideline is that just use 40% of your combined income with your spouse. That should be the maximum threshold that you are putting into your monthly installment, so that the rest of the 60% of your earnings, you can use it to finance your household needs as well as your own other financial commitments. But of course, there's no hard and fast rule for this kind of thing. So this really boils down to your own personal financial planning and your comfort level. And this will be more for your own stay segment. And let's say now you are an investor, and this is of course one of the greatest ways is to leverage on your bank loan and to take out the maximum loan that you can, and meaning to say that you're going to max out your TDSR. So let's say if you have a monthly rental about 4,000, technically you still got to top up or maybe about 1,000, including like your MCST fees as well as your property tax. And of course, you should be earning about 8,600 per month in order to take up that full loan at a 1.2M property value. And I think the beauty of real estate is, let's say you're working full time, you have consistent CPF OA monthly contribution coming your way as well. Then technically, if you're renting out at 4,000, let's say your CPF OA contribution is about 1,300 per month, you technically do not need to top up any cash of your own into owning this particular asset, because the mortgage mortgage is self-sustained by both your CPF as well as the rental that you're receiving from the tenant. So I think in terms of investment, it's great to max out because this is really the power of leveraging on loans and good debt as well, because technically most of the time your monthly installment, there's a principal component as well as an interest component. So the principal is basically what you're going to get back at the end. Once you sell off your property, that's going to be refunded to you. But interest, of course, that's going to be an expense. And let's say you rent it out, naturally most of the time your rental should take care of the interest expense itself. And one of the key beauties of leveraging in terms of taking up a property loan in Singapore is that the banks do not share your profit, meaning to say that you loan about $1 million from the bank and maybe you bought a property about $1.5 million. 5 years down, the property appreciated to 2M. Technically, your loan that's remaining is just offsetting from the initial loan that you borrowed, which is 1M. However much, let's say this jump from 1 to 1.5, that 500k difference, the banks do not need to share your profit. And of course, one of the most prudent way and quick tip is to always set aside a good savings for your emergency funds just for your monthly installment. So I'm excluding your own personal savings for your own emergency funds for your daily expenses. Maybe a good buffer is to set aside maybe 6 to 12 months, or just in case of any rainy days. Maybe sometimes we never know, the job market is uncertain, you're not able to finance your monthly installment anymore because you lack that monthly CPF OA coming in. So feel free to head on to our PropertyLimBrothers tools calculators segment on our website itself. There are many different tools for you to play from. You can check out your TDSR, your LTV, what are like the finances involved in buying a certain property. And of course, most important is to really ascertain what is the amount of cash flow that we have in terms of like your CPF refund, your sales proceeds after you sell off your HDB and you plan to upgrade. What is the total asset that you have? What's the total funds available for your next home after you sell off your property? Do you need the funds to come out from the sale of your property? Do you not need the sales proceeds from your first property as well? So if you want to find out more, feel free to head on to one of our first few episodes where we talk about the financial calculations. You can learn more from that episode as well. So I think the key thing here is really just to make sure that your monthly installment is comfortable for you and your family before you proceed with your upgrading plans. Of course, if you'd like to discuss more about your property upgrading plans, feel free to arrange for a consult with our team. We'll be more than happy to share with you guys as well. Until then, my name is Caline Leong and we'll see you on the next episode. Ready. I'm ready. Sometimes ready. Okay, let me try.